Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a case that's both haunting and, well, incredibly insightful. It's the mysterious disappearance and tragic death of Elisa Gomez in California back in 2019. And our goal here, our mission with this deep dive, is to really help you quickly get a handle on the critical facts and, understand the deeper implications from the sources we've gathered. So let's set the scene. Sacramento, California. It's the summer of 2019. Elisa Gomez, she's a 26-year-old tattoo apprentice, and she just vanishes from her apartment. And you can imagine the immediate shock, the alarm for her family, her friends. They were really close-knit. This just wasn't like her at all.
Exactly. And that's often the key with cases like Elisa's. They are undeniably tragic, of course, but they also offer this crucial lens into human behavior, into societal patterns even. They're not just isolated events, right? They often reveal these underlying dynamics that are just vital for us to understand. So this deep dive will explore those insights, look at how seemingly small details can, well, unravel a really complex and heartbreaking truth.
Okay, so Elisa Gomez. She was described as, a quiet soul, artistic, deeply loved by her family. And that's why the sudden silence was just so alarming. She stopped answering texts. Then, completely out of character, she skips a family gathering. No warning, nothing.
Yeah, and that kind of break in routine, especially with someone known to be reliable, that sends up immediate red flags for loved ones. It's chilling.
Absolutely. And then there were the immediate signs at her apartment, just chilling. Her roommate claimed Elisa had gone for a late-night walk.
Yeah.
Just never came back. But that story, it didn't quite sit right. Not with her family, not with the investigators later, because her phone, her keys, her wallet, all the essentials, they were still inside the apartment.
Right.
And maybe the most unsettling thing, her bed was neatly made, looked completely untouched. It literally felt like she'd just vanished into thin air.
And it's precisely those details, isn't it? That untouched scene, all her essential items left behind, that immediately tells seasoned investigators, okay, this probably isn't someone just walking away. Or even, a voluntary disappearance. Right. That lack of disturbance, it often suggests a certain level of familiarity, maybe someone she knew was involved. And that's critical right from the start in narrowing things down in a missing persons case.
So for days, the initial search was just relentless. Investigators, volunteers, they combed nearby woods, riverbanks, neighborhoods. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And as the days stretched into a week, a really grueling week, local media picked it up, the community was holding its breath, and rumors started. Foul play. The fear was just growing, palpable. Then 11 agonizing days later, the worst fears were confirmed. Elisa's body was discovered in a remote drainage culvert about 15 miles outside Sacramento. Yeah. A grim, horrifying discovery. And it shifted the whole tone of the case. The initial findings, they painted a really disturbing picture. Her body was wrapped in a painter's tarp, partially decomposed. And tragically, there were clear signs of blunt force trauma and strangulation.
Right. And this is where investigators make a really crucial deduction, and one that shapes everything that follows. From those specifics, the type of injuries, blunt force, strangulation, plus the concealment, wrapping her in that tarp, they concluded this wasn't random, not a random act of violence.
No.
The specific methods, the violence involved, it often indicates, well, a high degree of rage and an intent to hide the crime. These are hallmarks investigators often link to crimes of passion, let's say, rather than just opportunistic attacks. It told them straight away, this was personal.
Okay, so personal,
Yeah.
that shifts the focus immediately to Elisa's inner circle. And a name surfaced pretty quickly, Ryan Porter. He was Elisa's ex-boyfriend, 29 years old. And like her, a fellow tattoo artist. He became a primary person of interest almost immediately.
Yeah, and to understand why, you really have to look at their relationship history. They'd dated for nearly 2 years. Friends consistently described it as volatile. The sources we looked at mentioned past accusations of emotional abuse. And apparently, Elisa had tried to cut ties with him several months before she disappeared.
Right.
So this historical context, this turbulent, emotionally charged relationship, it's absolutely crucial. It potentially provides motive, a pattern of behavior. Investigators look very closely at that.
So Ryan Porter's brought in for questioning. And his initial story, pretty simple. He said he and Elisa hadn't spoken in weeks.
Trying to create distance.
Exactly. But then came the evidence that contradicted him. Phone records. They told a very different and pretty damning story. Not only did they show he had called her the night she disappeared,
Okay.
but then surveillance footage. It placed his very distinct truck near her apartment around 2 a.m. that same night.
Wow, so the timeline starts tightening around him.
It really does.
And then there's this. A really chilling piece of evidence emerged, solidified things even more. A neighbor's security camera just happened to be perfectly positioned. It captured audio from that same night.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it recorded what sounded like a heated argument inside Elisa's apartment, shouting, then a distinct crash, and then just silence, an unsettling silence.
Wow.
So that specific audio, it gives you not just a crucial timeline, but a direct auditory link. Between Ryan and Elisa's apartment, right around the time she likely disappeared, it completely undermined his initial statements.
Okay, so with all this mounting evidence, the calls, the truck, the audio, a search warrant was swiftly executed at Ryan's home.
Makes sense.
What the police found there,
Yeah.
it was absolutely damning. Basically sealed his fate. They found the exact same kind of painter's tarp that was used to wrap Elisa's body.
The same kind. Wow.
A forensic match. Almost impossible to explain away.
Yeah.
And even more horrifying, traces of blood in the back of his truck.
Let me guess.
Matched Elisa's DNA.
Okay. That's huge.
Yeah. But maybe the ultimate nail in the coffin. A handwritten note. It was torn into pieces, carefully thrown away in his trash can. Police pieced it back together. And it read, chillingly, "I didn't mean to. She pushed me. I snapped. I'm sorry."
Wow. A confession. Torn up, but still.
Yeah.
So, you look at the cumulative weight of all that evidence. You've got the digital footprints, right? The phone records, the surveillance footage, totally destroying his alibi. Then the irrefutable physical evidence, the matching tarp, the DNA.
Yeah.
And finally, that handwritten confession note. It just becomes an overwhelming case for the prosecution. This whole collection of facts, it leaves very little room for doubt. And it led directly to Ryan Porter's arrest, charged with first-degree murder.
The trial, it was held in late 2021, and it really gripped California. I mean, the story was just so compelling, so tragic. It resonated deeply across the state. Ryan Porter's defense, they argued for temporary insanity. He claimed he acted, the heat of the moment. Said he tried to cover it up just out of fear, not because it was premeditated.
Right, a common defense tactic in these situations. But the jury, they didn't accept it. Didn't buy the temporary insanity claim. After reviewing everything, they convicted him. First-degree murder. And the sentence reflected that. Life in prison, no possibility of parole.
A sense of justice, perhaps, but the story doesn't end there.
No, it doesn't. What's really important to recognize is how Elisa's story then kind of transformed.
Yeah.
It sparked these widespread and frankly overdue discussions about emotional abuse, about the often hidden signs of toxic relationships. It brought a really vital conversation right into the public eye.
Elisa's family, channeling their grief, their profound grief, into something really meaningful. They actually launched a nonprofit in her name. And they've dedicated themselves to advocating for young women who might be in abusive partnerships, offering community resources. It's powerful stuff.
It really is a powerful example of how sometimes a personal tragedy can become a catalyst for real positive change.
And as the sources mention, her friends, they remember Elisa not for how she died, but for her art, the art she created, the kindness she showed everyone. And as one source put it, the light she brought into dark spaces.
A beautiful way to remember her.
So we've taken this deep dive into the harrowing details of Elisa Gomez's case, from that mysterious disappearance to the overwhelming evidence that ultimately led to a conviction.
And as we wrap up, maybe something to leave you with. Consider those hidden signs of emotional abuse. The sources really highlighted them in Elisa's story. How can we, as a society, get better at identifying and addressing these often subtle indicators before they escalate to something devastating?
Yeah.
What stands out to you as the most critical insight from Elisa's story, especially for anyone who might be experiencing something similar or maybe witnessing it? And what responsibility do we each hold, really, in fostering communities where people feel safe enough to speak out about toxic relationships without fear? It's a lot to think about.
It really is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.